Hello, everyone, and welcome to yet another episode of this exclusive Fireside series in a very unusual theme, Humanized Technology for Future Strong Organizations. In this series, we have started talking to senior industry leaders from multiple industries about their strategy towards technology, towards blue-collar ecosystem, the adoption of digital platforms, and the never-ending debate of human versus tech. In today's, we have two very special guests. My first guest is Mr. Balachandar NV, Chief Sustainability Officer and President CSR, Communication and Corporate Affairs, Ashok Leyland. Mr. Balachandar is an industry veteran with more than 33 years of experience across sectors. He has worked with some prominent companies such as India Today Group, Aditya Birla, and Taj Group of Hotels, to name a few. Currently, he's the member of core operating team and HR leader, providing functional leadership to all manufacturing plants and key divisions across all geographies. Welcome to the show, Bala.
Thank you for having me here.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to have you with us once again. My next guest is Mr. Nilabh Kapoor. Nilabh Kapoor, Business Head, OLX People, BetterPlace Company. Nilabh is the business head at OLX People, a platform that offers end-to-end recruitment ecosystem to employers, recruitment consultancies, job seekers, and consultancies to make hiring seamless across industries. At OLX People, Nilabh is focused on making the organization the most sought-after partner and one-stop solution for staffing and recruitment needs. He's responsible for streamlining internal operations, business process, managing market strategy, and business and product development. Welcome to the show, Nilabh. So good to have you here.
Thank you, Abid. Thank you for having me. Thank you for a wonderful introduction. And once again, thanks and welcome, Mr. Balachandar. Look forward to a very insightful session from you.
Same here, Nilabh.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you. Thanks a lot. Without any delay, I would like to shoot my first question. And my first question is for Bala. How have things in the manufacturing industry changed through a lot more integration of AI? What are your thoughts?
Well, as Andrew, the founder of Google Brain, said, AI is the new electricity and data is the new oil. So AI is here to stay, and AI is a technology that companies will essentially start to embrace. It has already started, but embrace in its entirety. And manufacturing, which was once considered a very, very physically tiring and a physically exhausting operation, has now become economically efficient, as well as in terms of production and in terms of pure efficiency, improved significantly. And this is thanks to AI. AI has helped not only in terms of identifying the processes, identifying the lapses, identifying the quality lapses and highlighting them, but also helped connect one machine to another and help us in terms of defining how the flows can happen efficiently, and also reduce defects or the number of quality lapses that would come up. So in a sense, AI has helped manufacturing achieve its maximum efficiency in a very short period of time.
Thank you so much. And now moving on the different aspect of technology, I would move to Nilabh. And my question to you is, Nilabh, technology is there to make your life easier, no doubt. We all accept it. So how do you make sure that your workforce leverages technology to get better results? Would you like to share something?
Yeah. I think very rightfully said, Mr. Balachandar shared his views on a very important aspect, which is work tech, which is completely changing the landscape as far as manufacturing and other sectors are concerned. I would here perhaps focus more on HR tech. And the first part of your statement is very important, that technology today is there to make our life easier. First, we need to look at it specifically as an enabler. It's not an end all, but a means to an end. And while we are trying to use technology to solve workforce or related problems, The important aspect is that understand the current problems and use cases that we are trying to solve. Now, before I go into a couple of specific situations where we have been using technology in that manner, let me give you a context of what do we do. While some part of it came out in the introduction, but more specifically, now as a BetterPlace company, we manage workforce and employee lifecycle for entry level and blue collar workforce for both on roll and contractual employees. So that's where so at this entry level, what becomes very important, and like all aspects of HR, is the employee experience. And how do you have employee engagement and life cycle management while you are engaging with these employees. Today in the blue collar and gray collar, the kind of roles that we're talking about are logistics, operations. There are some at factory, but the new ones that are emerging are mostly hyper local and distributed, where the actual connect is at the hub. And that is where trying to increase your touch points with these employees become critical. And what we have done is that we have tried to solve it by looking at the most important day of the employee, which is the first working day, which we also call as the onboarding day, and try to see how we can try and build a customizable onboarding experience for this blue collar and entry level workforce. Now, there are three elements that we have tried to use in this use case that I'm talking about when we are onboarding an employee, and they become critical for both aspects: the employee's own well-being and means to a livelihood, and for the employer also, to whom we try and provide these solutions. So the first critical aspect, which all of us would have also experienced, is documentation. There are legal and regulatory norms that need to be followed. If we are doing it in a digital, not so connected manner, we still need to follow those norms. And how we try and do that is by trying and providing a template. Employees get an access in terms of a mobile phone. A lot of this connect now is not face to face, but through an app which is given to them. There are 2 or 3 specific issues that we have seen when we have tried to address these issues. Obviously, connectivity is one. You can't have a one-stop seamless process. And there is a lot in the beginning when we tried to implement it, we found that there were a decent number of failures that were happening. A lot of employees were dropping out. Only 30% were adopting to it, while there was a lot of demand that let's have virtual or digital onboarding to 80 or 90%. So human aspects became really important. Whenever we talk about HR or we try and talk about a solution, what I have realized in my experience is that the human aspect became very important. So the 2 or 3 things that we did to try and elevate that: one, put a human face or a connect who will first explain the purpose of the entire process, so that the employee understand that why it is important to follow these 3 or 4 steps. Other interesting thing was fear of failure itself was not letting the employee go forward into the process. So we created a progress bar where we had certain steps showing that, in case you are even dropping out, you are 50% there or 70% there. So they were inclined and incentivized to come back and complete the process because only 20% was left. And lastly, a more personal approach to the entire handling of it. So I will take a very simple, tech problem that we faced in the beginning when they were inputting something. The validation errors used to be input incorrect, input error, in whichever language we are talking about. We made it very simple. Please don't enter initials. Please provide complete address. That kind of ensured that this 30% became 80%. So today, with the volumes that we handle, done more than 20 million employee onboardings in this life cycle, we are very seamlessly able to do it. Now, beyond this, the other parts also become important because onboarding is not a one-day process. The first 60 or 90 days are very important. So I will just quickly tell you 2 other aspects, maybe not go in detail, to try and ensure that the answer is crisp, as you asked in the beginning. Familiarization with the company roles, objectives, and the company policies. So we have created how-to-dos, self-help, FAQs, micro-learnings, so that the employee can use them. And not only in English or Hindi, even in vernacular and native languages, because today you have a very diverse, dispersed workforce. Trying to ensure that they are work ready. If possible, provide them an assignment which they can prepare themselves with. They understand what their expectation would be. Most organizations have 2 to 3 day training. So they can be ready, before the training to be completely plunged into this 2 to 3 day training. Alignment with the team members. So this is largely the way we addressed one solution. Other solutions, that we are today seeing is learning or upskilling becomes really important. Majority of the workforce today is having a strong interface in logistics and operations with the end customer. So soft skills in terms of digital literacy and others become important. So those are other solutions that we are trying to work on.
Okay, thank you so much, Nilabh. Coming back to Bala, I mentioned earlier about the tech versus human approach and why it is important, why it is debatable, and why we are not getting any concrete response. But I would like to know your view. Like, how do you think the blended approach between humans and tech is more beneficial than using either? What are your thoughts?
Very simple answer to that is they cannot exist independently. And when they exist independently, they become suboptimal. So the best way to get an optimal solution is to have a good and a healthy balance of technology and human interface. Now, there could be shades of gray, there could be also shades of black and white. So a very simple repetitive process which just requires data to be thrown out can be completely tech enabled. For example, if you go into an ATM, if you have to just take out cash, an ATM machine is fine. But at the same time, when you have to get into a relationship engagement, when you're going to advise your clients on a financial planning model, or when you've got to sell an insurance product, which means you need to probably try and understand the needs of the individual, there the human interface is essential. But having said that, for the seller or for the relationship manager to engage better, if he has data driven AI tools which can calculate the return, which can actually present the savings that one can achieve in terms of the investment that the investor is going to benefit, it becomes that much more easier. So tech and human interface in the current context will coexist, and it is suboptimal when they are driven independently. And even if you take manufacturing processes, for example, all said and done, AI or automation will take over repetitive and high energy or high, what one can say, exhausting jobs or tough and strenuous jobs will be taken over by machines. And machines can be controlled by AI or can be controlled by technology. But there is a certain amount of skill that is involved. There is a certain amount of finesse that one brings to the product. If you take the auto industry, it is fairly automated, but at the same time, there are certain areas where a skill, the way the axle is fitted on, the way the chassis is lined up for the engine bed to be sitting on it, all that requires a certain amount of skill. I mean, a little bit of a balance here and there. A tech enabled facility will tell you that there is something wrong, but how to do it right, only the individual can make it up. So, my opinion, tech and human interface, a right balance is the best way to go forward.
According to you, the right balance is the key.
Yep.
Coming back to Nilabh, you mentioned how you function and some of the challenges as well about technology and how to get better results. But there are always a number of challenges when integrating new methods in the already existing system. So what are some of the challenges you face in integrating humanized tech approaches?
Picking a thread from what Mr. Balachandar also said, one, the approach needs to be very clearly seen. It's HR and human interface and tech, not a human interface versus. So a right balance is the most important thing that is required. What couple of things that you find in the beginning is fear of automation, or a fear of failure instead of fear of losing job. It's like oversimplified when we say fear of losing job. So there are 3 or 4 things that we now have started working with employers in terms of trying to address those challenges. I'll take one and maybe build a crisp example and then just share the other approaches that we have. So one thing very critical when we are trying to scale up and build sustainable businesses today that are interacting with our end customers, is to get the right person for the right job. We migrated from an automated search and shortlisting system for a recruitment team to an AI and ML team. And the same fears came in when we were trying to build this engine. To keep a very simple solution, how did we do it? First, we try to identify the problem that is there. Problems can be multifold when you're talking about recruitment. It can be time to hire, it can be cost per hire, it can be reaching the right candidate and faster. We identified two problems: improving recruiter efficiency and time to hire. Had a very strong data source that we used to build an AI ML engine, and we got the recruiter involved into the entire process. How did we do it? There were two distinct approaches. We say that the system that we're building is the only source of truth, or we try and build a combined source of truth as far as the solution is concerned. We went for the latter. There were no scores given to the candidate profiles. There was no force fit candidates provided. They were recommendations. Recruiters were comfortable. They were clearly red flags as far as a profile is concerned, and there were green markers, why somebody should select. That also helped the system to learn on its own. And in fact, once somebody sees success in the entire thing, then the involvement becomes much higher, the alignment becomes much higher. So this is one example. Similarly, we are today working on seeing how can we build similar solutions for compliance, seamless payroll and payout. We understand the blue collar well-being is very important. So healthcare insurance or access to financial instruments are other things that we're trying to use similar approaches to work. But the bottom line is a human interface and tech that we should rely on.
So human interfacing tech that we should rely on. I'll go back to Bala and I'll ask one question. I mentioned AI. So my next two questions will be related to AI only, but from different aspect. So there's no second thought of AI being the future. As you guys also mentioned. So how do you think organization can work towards this sustainable workforce by integrating the tech-human approach when it comes to adapting AI? And I would like to know what Ashok Leyland is doing, what, from your point of view. That will be very enlightening.
Yes, as Nilabh had said, it's going to be difficult at this stage to not adopt AI. And AI, if you look at it, is how does data help in decision making? AI is nothing about connecting the dots. AI is nothing but seeing patterns in abstract measures and giving us a certain framework for decision making. So AI in its simplified terms is a decision making tool or a decision supporting tool. Organizations like Ashok Leyland, if you look at today, we are getting a lot into services. When I mean services, while we are a very strong product company, most of the future businesses or the future lines of businesses or offerings are coming in from services. Like, for example, there is a lot that we offer to the customer in terms of vehicle data. The number of kilometers it runs on a day-to-day basis, the number of points it covers, the number of service points that it can cover, the mileage, the driver data, the kind of efficiency in which the engine is being optimally utilized, maximum speed, minimum speeds, the kilometers run. So there is a huge volume of data that we pick up from every running vehicle that we send out. This is picked up through a data chip that is placed in the vehicle, and it is centrally relayed to a center in our data center. And every vehicle literally has a twin dashboard running in our system. Now, this data is now sold back or is now supported as a service tool to the fleet operator or to the owner of the truck. So this is one line of business. Second line of business is how do you actually ensure that the service is monitored? And I mean the vehicle service is monitored through data. And here, Artisan AI actually plays a very, very critical role. So it picks up the kind of kilometer it has run, the period in which it has run, the period in the last service, and gives a beep to the owner or give a beep to the call center. And the call center in turn, calls up the vehicle owner or the driver to pick it up. So in the future of business where the customer interface or the customer engagement is high, AI plays a very critical role in terms of staying connected with the customer and giving you suggestions and giving you prompts to ensure that the customer is not alone in the usage of the product. And we, as either the original equipment manufacturer or the service provider, are fully equipped and aware to connect up with the customer at the right time, providing for the most optimal solution.
Since I'm talking about hardcore tech and how companies can leverage about from tech, I would like to ask one more question to Nilabh. And Nilabh, a very basic question, like how companies should leverage tech to become future ready organization. We all are talking about future ready and how we can become one. So how can companies should leverage tech to become a future ready organization? What are your thoughts?
Agree. So maybe in two parts. In the beginning, I'll try to give a perspective, and secondly, maybe go a bit into jargon also. When you're talking about tech, jargon becomes imperative. So what we are essentially talking about is digital transformation, and we need to look at it from two angles. Customer experience, like Mr. Balachandran said, if it's a customer connect, it's important how do you kind of leverage technology. And the other one that I have some experience on, which is the employee experience. And when we're talking about digital transformation, firstly, if organizations are becoming future ready, important they move away from a siloed approach in a project to project, where you have a solution and then you find a problem, which also means that buy-in at the topmost level in terms of digital transformation, a very comprehensive plan. It's also possible that in the beginning there are small projects or experiments to test the hypothesis, and also to identify low-hanging fruits, because the success of them are going to be the platform on which this entire plan will be worked. In on the employee side or HR side, there are two specific things that organizations can work towards: talent management or talent outcomes, and employee experience. So these are two goals which at the top management can be taken, maybe as a comprehensive plan, as I said, or in silos. Now, what are the tools which clearly come out? And I leave just at the tools. As we said, AI and ML. Already shared an example, a strong enabler in recruitment we are using. In recruitment, in fact, there are other very interesting tools which can even go further in the employee life cycle, like a bot, an AI-led bot. Today, candidate engagement before they get joined becomes very critical. There are a lot of times they don't get any response or any understanding of the process at the early stage, and which might also predict whether they will join in the future, accept the offer, or what feedback they will give about the organization. Bots are tireless workhorses which organizations can use. Branding of the employer, both for current workforce or prospective workforce. AI, ML today can be used through programmatic advertising and other tools to create the right influence set directly or through social media advertising. And the other one, important one, when we are looking at a strategic level, is analytics. Analytics beyond the earlier Excel sheets and Excel-based model has today moved to deep analytics and predictive analytics. I think those are important things that can be adopted by organizations. So because once we're talking about the outcomes, it becomes important. One, like a SMART goal, if you can't measure it, it's not a goal. So what are these goals? You understand these goals and then you evaluate the outcomes. There are different insights which can come in. I can again share more on the employee side only, but time to hire or hiring analytics, attrition, both predictive and prescriptive. There are certain things which can kind of share from a location or a department or a specific manager, whether there is attrition possibility or even a product line. Recruitment funnel, productivity analysis, work tech very strongly aligned to HR tech.
Great, thank you so much. So I'll move to my last question very quickly. I'll come to Bala, and very important questions. We all are talking about skill gap. We are talking about reskilling, upskilling, especially after this pandemic. So, and the skill gap is the biggest issue today. So do you think AI has a role to play there? Is AI reducing the gap, or the reason behind that? What are your thoughts?
100% AI can significantly help in skill gap development, because AI actually picks the right content. AI picks the most relevant content. AI helps in connecting through a wide range of content. So with the help of AI, you are able to reach out to a wider audience, through the help of AI, you're able to reach a wider audience and provide for the most relevant exposure or the most relevant learning input that one can think of. And also, more importantly, I think AI, in a sense, makes it easier for the learner or for the person who is absorbing that skill, understanding, understand it better, and probably, AI, for example, we use AI and VR to actually train our service technicians to actually service a vehicle with different sorts of problems, with different sorts of issues that may probably come up in the field, which means AI picks up the kind of issues and problems that the vehicle may face in a, say, 300-kilometer run. And through AI, converted into VR, which is virtual reality, or augmented reality through the data points, we can actually get this guy to enter into a truck or go under a truck, visually see for himself what's there under a truck, go to the point where the issue is and try and resolve it. So using AI, it is absolutely easy and absolutely efficient to bridge the gap in terms of skill, whatever the skill may be.
Your concluding note will be AI can bridge the gap for skilling. Coming back to Nilabh, I have asked you how an organization can leverage technology to become future-ready organization, but I would like to ask you one more thing. How should organization, or how do you think organization can leverage tech to solve business problems? Very quickly,
at that level, I talked about the strategic level. Here, I will talk more as an operational, way forward when organizations are using technologies. Again, two things, two building components. From an employee or a HR perspective, managing employees or enabling employees. Managing employees, some parts we already said, right person for the right job becomes very important. There are further nuances to it. A strong verification system today with a very diverse requirement in terms of verification, technology can be an enabler. Compliance and seamless payrolling, again important for both the employees and the organization. Increasing touch point with the associates. We went for two examples, recruitment, chatbots, and onboarding. But there are a number of touch points which technology can enhance, especially in a blue collar or a gray collar workforce scenario, where they're dispersed, they are the customer contacts, but they need to feel connected to the employer. So those are the managing employees. The second one is enabler, a very interesting example. I was not aware of it, what Mr. Balachandra shared about VR being used to train. So that is where technology is being used to enable. And it solves both a work tech and an HR tech problem. And it actually goes a long way as far as providing a solution to the customer is concerned, because that's the real success metric or the North Star metric that we are trying to see. How do we enhance customer experience? So enabling in terms of upskilling, it can be a very important thing and easily achieved with an AI-based training app.
That note, thank you so much. We understood about technology, how we can be ready for future-ready organizations, and why, how AI can bridge the skill gap. Thank you, gentlemen, for sharing your thoughts, for taking out time and sharing your thoughts on technology, AI, and why blue collar is the next big thing that we have spoke about. On that note, I would like to end this discussion. Thank you, viewers. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Abid. Thank you, Mr. Balachandra. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nilabh. Thank you, Abid. Pleasure seeing you.
Pleasure.